Okay, my outstanding friends, once again, shocker du jour, or your money back. And this time it's going to be a shocker du jour supreme, a deluxe. Interplanetary, actually. We're going to be talking about some formations and some recently announced discoveries about where life originated and is there life beyond Earth. We're going to look into that, and we're going to look into formations like this that are on Earth and are also seen in other places. Let's get started. All right, so what is methanes? Why is this such a big deal? They see gases, so what? Methanes are produced primarily by the breakdown, the decomposition of biology without any oxygen, primarily. And the best methane is produced underground in the absence of oxygen, called anaerobic, no oxygen basically, and capped. And the biology decomposes because of these little microbes. I think they're called methanogenic microbes, something like that. Yeah, I think that's it. Anyway, so there's life right there, methanogenic microbes. Those are the things that make methane, first of all. But they have to work on something biological. Methanes don't just happen from a non-biological source. So this is rotting biology. Well, it's rotting biology on Mars? Where would that come from? Well, let's see what Curiosity found when they first went there. Okay, Fair Use Act, I'm just replying to their comments that Travis Taylor reveals huge secrets about ancient aliens, or whatever, ancient aliens. Now, this is a History Channel, and this is a picture of the graph of methane gases they are seeing come and go on Mars. And they're basing that this is biological processes create methane here on Earth. So they're saying, well, it's the same stuff. Probably life up there, maybe, who knows? But this is a huge reveal. Now, something else I wanted to look at is what this picture is overlaid on, all of these little balls. See all these little balls? They're virtually everywhere. And they are virtually everywhere up on Mars in this area where Curiosity was originally. Now, I followed this as close, literally, as anybody that was in this project. They were very open with the information originally, and then they just cut it off. And I think they cut it off for the reasons that I'm going to show you, because this is literally biology. They're correct. This is no question. Mars was literally the same as Earth. I'm going to show you the evidence to support the things I'm saying. But don't forget, this is what they're making their claim on, is this methane gases are coming and going, they're coming and going, just like the biology here on Earth. And when you understand methane, it's a decomposition of biology. It's decomposing biology creates the methanes. And they just create them because of certain microbes that break them down. I think I'll go through all of that stuff, or have, but you're going to hear and see that there was literally almost nothing but biology on Mars until it was hit by Venus, just as Emanuel Velikovsky claimed. Okay, what they claim here on the History Channel is, oh, there's clearly technological objects on Mars. Well, maybe. And then she's talking about rocks. Well, we clearly know that this rock came from Mars. Well, how do they know that? And NASA has continued to make discoveries. You see this? They show that. And they claim life on Earth actually originated on Mars, possibly. They're not making that claim. But I know exactly what this stuff is. And that, they claim, like, is a mummy or something. This is incredible. They just keep saying, well, we know this rock must have come from Mars. That's biology. That's a broken piece of tendon. These are just tendon straps. this is a tendon too, and just like that. That broke off flat at the top there. Nobody cut that. This would break off too if you snap that off, but this is glued in. Tendons are glued in certain places, but they have blocks, and they have these little straps in them, just like this has straps. I don't know if you can see through it or not, but that's a tendon. And right where that little brown looking stuff is, that's a bloody goo that actually glues this to where the muscle was, and this is where the muscle starts. Tendon attaches to muscle. It's flat as a pancake right across there. It's the same thing there. That's basically this. And they know this came from Mars. Well, I don't see why they know that. I would like to examine all of the things that they show, because I'm going to show you stuff that changes everything. This is biology right here. That's a piece of meat that came from a creature that died during the Great Flood. That right there is tissue from a gigantic creature. This is just membranes. And that's the fluid-filled highway that I discovered while I was doing my research on these gigantic fossils. And you see that? That's a hair follicle. That's a hair follicle 2 inches wide. You say, oh, come on, Roger. Well, okay, shown this a couple hundred zillion times. That right there is where the erector pili muscle right here attaches to the root ball, which allows you to, you know, make your hair stand up on edge. All right, in here is the root, and it comes down here to the hair papilla, which is the red and the blue, which this is all transitioned now, so it no longer has any color to it. This is called nucleophilic invasion and substitution. In these conditions, whatever was available to come in and stabilize whatever this was came in and changed it. So it's all the same color because it's basically the same material now. But this was at one time the guy's root ball. And that right there is the sebaceous gland. And that, of course, is where the hair came out. And you can see all that little wrinkly stuff at the top, and they are very, it's just clay. It's just clay at the top. That's all it is. And the hair comes out of there, and this is a flat-sided hair. So I'm told that this would have been a curly-haired person. And this is just as it was found. I didn't do anything to it. I have stuff laying around here, just staggeringly large stuff. And some of my stuff is DNA tested, CAT scanned, all of that stuff. So, but it's not, you know, in the mainstream. They know about it. It's, you look up you go in and look up if Roger Spur is right about. Well, you know what? Let's just do it. See what happens. All right, here it is right here. This is the AI. This is not me speaking. This is what they have gleaned from the information about my research. If Roger Spur's mudfossil theory posits many geological formations, particularly mountains and rock outcrops, are not merely mineral deposits, but they're fossilized remains of ancient giant life forms. According to Spur, these mud fossils, no space there, are preserved through a process he terms fascia-facilitated fossilization. That was my original paper in 2015. After all the research was done, that's 10 years ago. Connective tissues, especially fascia, undergo mineralization in wet anaerobic conditions, leading to the preservation of soft tissues and even DNA, which I had done on 3 of my samples. Now, if this was correct, it would be rewriting geological history. If it were to be validated, it profound implications across various, all literal, everything, even history and all of that. Rewriting geological history, understanding that, you know, plate tectonics and all that stuff is creatures' bodies rubbing against each other as they swell and as they bloat and as they give off their gases as volcanoes and earthquakes and so forth. It's challenging evolutionary biology, absolutely. Reinterpreting human history and mythology, no question about that. Advancements in biotechnology and medicine, yes. You have to understand all of the things that I'm presenting to understand any of it, because it's all about biology, it's about enzymes, it's about bacteria, it's about transitions, it's about nucleophilic invasion and substitution, nucleosynthesis, it's about click chemistry, it's about half-lives of everything facilitated by enzymes, which do up to millions of years of chemistry in less than 1 second because of the enzyme. All of this stuff has to be understood. Philosophical and cultural shifts, yes. The mythology is true. Now, skepticism, scientific scrutiny, despite the intriguing nature of Spur's theory, faces significant skepticism. They won't let me talk about it. All right, conclusion. While Spur theory presents a provocative perspective on Earth geology and biology, it remains outside mainstream consensus. Should future research provide credible evidence supporting the theory, it would revolutionize multiple fields of study. However, until such evidence is presented, which I am presenting now, and subjected to rigorous scientific scrutiny, which I would like to have done, the theory remains speculative. It is not speculative. It is 100% supported by material evidence, which I am a material scientist. I don't guess. I show what I show, and then I need it examined, which I did my own. I paid for all of my own stuff. DNA, CAT scans were donated by Jesse Garant and Associates. They did 7 CAT scans for me. Fabulous, 2D and 3D. Nicest people you ever want to meet. Jesse Garant and Associates. Very, very engaged in scientific research. But nobody wanted to look into it after that, but I really appreciate their help. Jesse, thank you. I love you, brother. Fabio, you are the best. Thank you, guys. Okay, let's get down to business. This is Mars. This is called the Mars Valles Marineris Trench. It's wider than the United States, and it was claimed by Velikovsky, who is my hero, Immanuel Velikovsky, that Venus impacted with Mars, or closely impacted, and destroyed Mars, which was virtually identical to Earth, had the same creatures, the same biology, and all that, and I'm going to show that to you. So, can we see any evidence? Well, we see this. There's no question that's a gouge. Something happened there. Can we see any evidence on Venus to account for this? Well, I think we can. Okay, this is Venus. This is the evidence. Obviously something happened here, serious, and this is magnetic discharge. It appears that Mars discharged its magnetic field, because it's gone now, and it's into Venus. Venus spins backwards, and there's some interesting things about that I can explain later. But this is nothing more than just like you took an arc welder, it's just magnetic discharge. So between the two of them impacting, not only that, Mars has an elliptical orbit now. Velikovsky said Venus pushed Mars out of its orbit into an elliptical orbit. Not perfectly round like it should be. It's going out and then coming back, and then going out and then coming back. Okay, you have seen my claims that there is nothing but biology, and it's gigantic biology. This is the basement layer of skin. These are the Moki marbles, but then this is Mars, and they're called the Mars blueberries, exactly like the Moki marbles, because it's all dusted away and eroded basically from the wind, and left just this tough stuff, which is the marbles. Up on Mars, they call them the Mars blueberries. On Earth, they're the Moki marbles, and they're everywhere on Earth, and even up on Venus, they found them too. Anybody who's familiar with the West, these are all over the place. These are Moki marbles. These are those little hard knots. And where do they come from? They come from skin. There's your skin. Right under your skin is a layer of stuff that has to move and do this way and that way, and go and squish and pull and do all kinds of things. But it has to come back to where it originally came from. That's what the balls do. They're anchors. Once all the fleshy, gooey stuff erodes away, you end up with nothing but the balls. And this is what it looks like in an actual human being. It's just everywhere. So you come back to where you started from, hopefully. Now, this is over in the United Kingdom. And this is nothing more than skin. And this is the fleshy stuff underneath with the balls that have eroded out of the wall. And they're laying here as what they call stromatolites. They think they just grow there. No, they don't. They are dropping out of that wall just like they would drop out of this one. If you eroded and eroded and eroded, the skin would keep going back and the flesh would turn into mud with all these balls in them, because the balls are tough. Everything else turns into mud, and that is precisely identical to what we see here. Here's your mud. Here's your balls. Here's your wall. Here's your skin. Here's your sky. So you say, oh, Roger, that's just accidental little what they call concretions. I said, well, maybe. But if you have some of these little concretions, which I call little anticis, skin anticis, you call them whatever you want, these little balls, you're going to have muscle somewhere. If you got skin and tissue and a body, you're going to have muscle somewhere. And this is what muscle looks like right here. These are called sarcomeres. And there's a red gooey spot where they glue together. And then these go in and out like this. This is relaxed muscle. This is a little bit of a tear. And this is what they should look like normally. And these should engage each other and pull in like this. And they're attached to tendons at the ends. And the tendon goes right into the bone or whatever. So the tendon gives you just a little bit of this, but these can go quite a bit. So this is contracted muscle. This is relaxed. Can I show that in these formations? I think I can. Let's see. Okay, so what are we looking at here? This is Mars, and it is 100% absolutely Mars. There is not one drop of erosion here. This is nothing but fine dust, which is all over the red planet, because these are literally blood cells, most of them. It's eroded flesh, because it was hit by Venus toward that trench and left decaying dead bodies, giant decaying dead bodies that just dusted off because of they'd be ionized or heavy duty, there's no atmosphere to suppress the radiation from the sun. So it basically dry cooked it. These are the sarcomeres. Those little stripes are the sarcomeres I showed you, and these are the connective tissues. And it's just dusted off and left these very obvious connective tissue patterns. They say this is over millions of years. Now again, this is on Mars, and this is from these earliest pictures, and I have a lot of them. So this is muscle sarcomeres. I showed you the real ones. These are the same things. So then you say, well, Roger, there's some more of these sarcomeres. They seem to be everywhere. And I say, yes, they are. And they say, well, how would you get blood to these things? Where's the blood? I said, well, right there. That's an artery, and that's a vein. They call this the Mars crab. They're a big deal about it, and then no more discussion. Oh, that's just pareidolia. No, it wasn't. I reported all of this stuff to them. I said, these are the arteries. This is an artery, and these are the blood vessels. They're going into the sarcomeres, and they're servicing this muscle. I have this exact same stuff here in my shop. The reason I know all about this is because I studied the mud fossils, and I reported it to NASA when they did this in 2015. And NASA ended up paying Yale to do a study on exceptionally preserved soft tissues, which is this. They would not respond to me, but they paid Yale to do it. And Yale says, yes, this happens, but only on jellyfish. No. Does this look like a jellyfish to you? That's a hair follicle, which I think I've already shown you. This is my buddy Caesar. He's a goose. And he's in the same thing in the Great Flood. There's his feather patterns. This is not a joke. This is serious, real stuff. And I have 3 DNA tested. 2 of them are giant human beings, and that's what threw them off. This is just staggeringly large creature bodies. I have found nothing, literally nothing, that didn't come from biology. Even asteroid Bennu, which they just picked up a sample, they brought it back to Earth, and guess what? It's the same thing as this because it's heart muscle. These are the things that kind of bother me, that they won't address reality. And all I want to do is talk. Now, these balls are, in the desert area, they've all washed off and just they're laying here. But in areas where they're thawing out, they still have biology attached to them, which is like meaty little stuff that plants live on. If you give plants blood meal, they'll go green. Well, guess what? This is what you got, blood meal right here. All those blueberries, you see the Mars blueberries, you see the Moki marbles, same thing, only these are just now coming out of a rotting, decaying, fleshy creature, which creates gobs of methanes. That's where all the methanes are coming from. I collaborate now with people all around the world. They have no interest in making money at this. They're just very interested in the research. The people in Alaska are telling me that the lakes now are bubbling quite regularly with the methanes because the heat in the surface is now enough that is going away. There's enough heat. Let me put it this way. Let me stand back for a second. There's enough heat now that's penetrating the surface that the rotting is really going. And all it does is expand. It has nowhere to go. Has nowhere to go unless and this stuff is melting off and they're just popping out. But other places, they have what's called cap rock. And that's the basement layer. So underneath here, there's organs, there's who knows what's right underneath, this is skin. Right underneath there, something is rotting because this is already turned into biology, into plant life. Underneath, it's all of a sudden, and this is up in Alaska, Mount Spur is up there, and it is gurgling. And it's not too far from here. All right, so this is skin. Well, what would happen if you pulled it this way or pushed it in this way or squished it this way or pulled it this way? These bags distort and the fluids just move around, they flatten out, they stretch out. But this brown part is the spring that brings them back. So we're going to have a bunch of little webbing in here with these stone balls. If we could look at this organically, it's going to be like this, but something's pulled this way or pulled this way. That's just totally relaxed. We're going to see some stuff that's pulled and pinched, and it's on Mars. All right, you saw all the balls and straps. This is skin pulled apart. So the strap is holding it, and it will come back. It'll turn back to like this. This is pinched together. This is pinched together. This is strapped. This is like a skin wrinkles. You can see how they stretch, and then they will come back. That's on Mars. It's called the Morse code. They were so open with all this stuff, and then it just shut down like they pulled the curtains down. And I told you, Yale presented a paper in 2016, which was virtually identical to what I presented to Derek Briggs at Yale, who was the one that presented this paper after being funded by NASA, Exceptional Preservation of Soft-Body Creatures. And they gave it a name. Yale gave it some fancy name, so I made it sound. They're mud fossils, and it says the Yale-led research team published a study in the journal Geology detailed the exceptional preservation of soft-body organisms in this area in Australia. They found that this preservation was due to a unique mechanism involving rapid silica precipitation in early diagnetic stages, facilitated, my word, by the high silica saturation of these ancient oceans. It was because we almost got hit by Venus, and all of the siliceous ooze from the bottom of the ocean came up and supersaturated it. High silica saturation. The process led to the formation of casts and molds. No, it led to the preservation of the animals' bodies with blood and everything else. And NASA paid them for that. And all they could say, Yale said it was just slimy creatures. There was no teeth or bones or anything, which is just not true whatsoever. My stuff is unbelievable, and the creatures were huge. I presented DNA, I presented CAT scans, I presented specimens, and they're still here and they're still available to be tested. And they are undeniable, just as is this lung. That's a human lung, and it's been tested in it's DNA tested human. You can't just swab the surface and say, oh yeah, there's human DNA. You have to drill inside very carefully, take it out. You see how flat that is? That's because it was in the flood. Flat like a pancake. And almost all my stuff is because I am on the top layer of Triassic rock, which is the whole world is dated on the stones that are right in my backyard, basically. 6 miles away from Dinosaur State Park. Top level Triassics and studied for forever. There's a red bed, gray clay, black cap, which I have, and I have a human footprint in that. There's so much to talk about here, and I need to have it talked about. If History Channel is sincere about their interest in our actual history, let's talk. That's all I've been asking for. That's all I've been asking for. And this was not right, what Derek Brigg did to me. Or Yale, because they know what everybody at Yale. I emailed everybody. I said, why are you people doing this? Why won't you do your job? Of course, nobody responded except Briggs. And he told me literally, he says, why don't you find a geologist that can look at your rocks? And then he published this paper, 2016, of Exceptional Preservation. My paper was 2015. This was my paper I presented to Yale in 2015. And this was after I had all my stuff done, the DNA tests, the CAT scans, all that stuff. And it was all about the same stuff they're talking about. These mud fossils, exact copies of the original creatures, separated on the fascia planes in the skins because of the membranes. It's fascia-facilitated fossilization. And I talk about the silicon, 50 times the silicon around the surface, because it was from the silicon coming up from the ocean floor. And I also discovered this one giant system. All fascia is made of collagens and keragens, the fabric creating fibers and elastins and sheets that wraps everything individually, then comes together as one giant system. This was the first time this was ever even known. Fascia is a tubular, fluid-filled fabric network. It's a highway that surrounds everything in your body. Instantly reconfigures itself as damaged or pulled apart. It appears as if it might even be a fiber optic wired network. This was all my work. Originally, it says, I feel this is a logical wiring for send and receive communications through this. They send bacteria out, basically. It appears fascia may be much more than fuzz, as they thought about it. They just thought it was fuzz. They cut it out and throw it away. It's one of the most important things in your body. And this was my paper from 2015. Yale took credit for it in 2016. And then somebody else took credit for this layer of interstitium, they called it. You see right here, you saw Yale's paper. This is in 2018. Meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. It's this fluid-filled highway. And basically, it writes just about the same way Yale did to me. It talks about it being even possibly where the acupuncture points are, which I also presented in my paper. So, you know, what's being done in academia is not right, first of all. They won't acknowledge anything that they didn't discover themselves. All of this stuff, not only that, wait till you see this. I showed you what muscle sarcomeres are. This is a heart muscle. And these bundles wrap out, and this is cut across where you can see the actual sarcomeres. This is an injury, a heart attack. There's a layer of phosphates, and then you have the sarcomeres, which I clearly showed you. All right, so are we on the same page? These are these. No objection? Okay, let's go forward. So where are these also found? Well, we find them here. That's those little blocks, the sarcomere blocks. So what you have is phosphates, which is the phospholipid layer, which is the membrane. You have the sarcomeres, which is this here. This is a blow up of that. Above that, you have another layer of membrane, and then above that you have another layer of sarcomeres, and it just keeps going and going and going. Now if you cut sideways through here, you can see the muscle bundles. See the bundles? All right, and if you look at the sarcomeres themselves, they look like this. So you got bundles, you got flat sheets of sarcomeres, you've got sheets of membranes in between. The phospholipid, called the phosphate surprise. You see, for surprise about what? Why would that be a surprise? And what's this all about? Where did this come from? Well, that came from outer space. You say, well, how do you know that? Well, because they went up and picked this up off of asteroid Bennu, brought it back to Earth, and sampled this, and looking at it, they found the RNA, the DNA, they found all of the amino acids, basically. They found 16,000 organic chemicals. They found uracil, and they found membrane, sarcomeres, in muscle tissue. And the phosphate was a surprise. They never expected it. And like I said, this came back from asteroid Bennu. So what is asteroid Bennu actually made of? Well, guess what? It's a heart. Okay, this is the mission. And almost a year ago, they came back with this sample. Now, this is National Science Foundation, Smithsonian. We pay for this. How can we better understand? Well, I think to pay attention to the details. This is about boulders and beyond, multi-scale analysis of Bennu. Well, let's do a little analysis. This is Bennu right here. Now, if you are a heart surgeon or you have a good medical book, you can see this circle right here is one of the heart valves. This circle here, take your time and look carefully, is another one of the heart valves. And so is this. This is a heart covered with biology, which is blood and tissues, basically. They wanted to see, why are all these little boulders on here? Well, how did that happen? Those are biology that just left over, was stuck to this, and then dusted away or evaporated from ionization and left the more structural parts that would have attached there, because you can have all kinds of little things holding on to your heart inside your body. This just doesn't float around free and fall all over the place. So these are the little spots that would have somewhat of an attachment. Can I show you other examples of hearts in space? Absolutely. Right there. That is Psyche. You see the size of that? I'm going to show you more detail. That's Psyche. And what happens is the hearts, you see this structure, exact same structure, there's no difference whatsoever. Hearts break right on this line right here because of iron banding. There's black and red blood up here, and they just pop it right off. So right here, you see the black and the red? They just snap that stuff right off, just flat as a pancake, and you end up with this. And the autopsy guys I work with say the same thing. They say they never knew why, but when they worked on a body that had been preserved for some time, and they open them up, and the heart, it just fall apart. Because the two bloods don't like each other. It's polarity, push apart. So this is how you end up with this plumbing gone. All right, that's the explanation for that. Now let's look at this, because this is tendon. Whole different issue than muscle. Very tough stuff. and that's where it locked in here. And then all this goopy stuff glued, literally glued the valves in, and it goes, pops off. So let's take a look at, like I say, this is Psyche. And Benu's the same thing. Benu is a heart as well, and that's the big valve right there. That's the blood coming this way. You see these three little spots? That's the hole where the blood comes this way. And if it tried to go back that way, clamps off. That's what they're all about. This one, the blood goes that way, and it won't come back. This one is a similar situation. That's the tricuspid, I think. Anyway, this is what Psyche looks like if you get right up to it. That's a valve. I mean, a tube. That's not a crater. That's not a crater whatsoever. And these are the same valves, same heart valves. And this is the tendon. And that locks right in, and that allows it to have something to grip onto so that your heart can da-lump, hopefully for a long, long time. These different colors are the colors of blood: red, black, and yellow. You see the black, the yellow, the red. This is a heart, and this puppy is big. I think it's 140 miles across. These are the size of the creatures we're dealing with. And you say, oh, come on, Roger, that's crazy. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I showed you what sarcomeres are like. Let's see if we can find some on Earth that are kind of big. I might be able to show you a heart attack victim. I'm not kidding you. You see this? That's the torn sarcomere. And then you get into the regular little spots. And there's another torn one. And then it can be torn here and go all the way across. This is a serious tear because this is supposed to pump here and pump, and now it's ripped and it's just not working. Well, can we see this in a gigantic creature here on Earth? Well, maybe. You see that black stuff right there? That's not supposed to be that thick, I don't believe. There should be a layer in there, but not like this. I believe this heart was ripped open, or whatever muscle it was. And these are the sarcomeres. And all of the red stuff has gone away. And this fills up with vein blood. That's vein blood, the black is from the veins. I think this could have been an injury. Now, whether it was a heart, I don't know. Where this is, I don't know either. Somebody sent me this picture, and this is not AI or any of that stuff, so don't go nonsense with that. These are all the sarcomeres. AI wouldn't even know how to do this. AI is just automated indoctrination. All it repeats is what everybody's put on the internet. It gives you a different perspective on a lot of things, yes, because I have been denied to be able to even talk. However, AI knows about my research very clearly, and this is extremely clear to see. So if anybody wants to see my real research, well, come and see the real research. Here it is. But I got a feeling that is a heart attack victim. That sure looks like it to me. You see it? You see this? You see that? Same thing. The red stuff is worn away, and we can see all those blocks, and we see a big, like this, and coming across. That could be a heart attack victim, as crazy as it sounds. Crazy as it sounds. All right, the other thing they're talking about is aliens, and where are they? If they were here in the past, and they are as was advertised, they were immortal, and they were everywhere, and I think they may be here. This was taken with a regular cell phone. We've got some research that just blows everything out of the water, but we have to be able to have it shown. This is, and I have another guy right now working on some even more sophisticated than this. Well, I don't know how much more sophisticated you can get, but this is all dipoles. And these are all magnetic fields. And that's exactly what CMOS does. It picks up magnetic fluctuations as vibration and turns it into light signatures, basically. That's how CMOS works. It's vibrating of these different metals. All right, here's another one that is quite obviously a dipole, the black and white. Now, I believe this is Venus and is spinning backwards, creating two magnetic fields. You see this one here? Obviously is a magnetic field. This one here is going right down the same planes. Right down the center. It's a secondary magnetic field. Now, Venus spins backwards. So, as it goes around the sun this way, let's say, it's picking up a field, bumping into what it's bumping into. But then it's going backwards, so it's picking up another field, because fields are created by the atmosphere that you bump into. And how much it can charge and discharge, charge and discharge, charge and discharge. This is capacitive reactance. Magnetic fields are capacitive reactance. You have to look up dipole electron flood theory to understand it. As we scrub through the universe, we charge up and discharge, cause a resonance frequencies. And it changes a little bit depending upon how intense the sun is. It's very, very obvious to look at it. Everywhere around the Earth, you're discharging lightning, because it's absorbing it and discharging it, absorbing it and discharging it. It's about 7.83 times per second, something like that. And that's the Schumann resonance frequency of Earth. Now, other ones are going to have different magnetic fields depending upon how intensely they scrub, how big they are. Our magnetic field is getting bigger and bigger because the atmosphere is expanding because of all of this combustion. The Earth is just combusting. And all of this methane gases, all of these hydrocarbon gases, all of the CO2 from burning fossil fuels, which at one time were in a little ball like this, and now they're in gigantic stadium-sized balls because they're gases now. You can't do that to the Earth forever. Hold on a second, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, there's just a lot to talk about. The sun is 10,000 degrees or so on the surface. Out here at its corona, there's no explanation for it, but it's millions of degrees. How did it get from 10,000 to millions? You would think it would dissipate. Well, I'll explain it to you in a second. Same thing with Earth. Earth is, let's call it 100 degrees on Earth. Way out here at the ionosphere, how much do you think it is? You think it's going to go down. No. It can be like 4,000, even 5,000 degrees. Thousands of degrees out here. Why? As the Earth spins and scrubs through space, it charges up and discharges, charges up and discharges. And this is the layer that contains those white particles that charge up. And the same thing with the sun. Charges and discharges, charges and discharges. And these are the white particles. Well, actually, in the sun, mostly they just go. They don't come back. In the Earth, they invade. The sun, they're issued out. Here's what the sun looks like as it issues its particles into space. They don't come back. You see that? They don't come back in a loop. Ours do, because we have a magnetic field. This has just shooting out particles everywhere, and they don't come back. So you don't have these, loops coming back into the sun. Now, of course, this is the moon overlaid the disk of the sun so that you're not blinded by the light. But you can see those are just particles spewing out into space. They're not going to come back. Those are the things that hit us. All right, you can see all the other planets and so forth. They have magnetic fields, but they come out and they come back in. They have a north and a south pole. The sun just, everything takes off and it goes. It still has poles. You can still see the poles, but it doesn't matter. Nothing's coming back into the pole. It's still emitting out both directions and sideways and this way. And it's spinning apparently this way because this is the most impact. I would say it's turning this way and moving in that direction. This is trailing juice. This is the juice that powers this solar system. This is the juice. It comes about of its own accord. And why does it do that? I say because of the size of it and the scrub of it is so intense that those particles are so given off that they go and they don't come back. All right, that's my position on this. Otherwise, you'd see this coming back up into this field. They don't have enough grab to pull itself back in. They're gone. Okay, my friends, this is the real tragedy. Immanuel Velikovsky wrote Worlds in Collision, 1950. It was #1 on the bestseller list, #1 for 11 weeks in a row, and the academics forced the publisher to recall the book, which they did, because they said, we'll never buy any more books from you. You know, it's like tariffs. And he said that Venus once was a comet, had a history of close encounters with Earth and Mars, causing catastrophic events in ancient times. Every culture on Earth had the same story. Everybody. And he went to all of them. He was a researcher. I am a material scientist. He was a researcher. He went and got all the evidence from all the cultures, compiled it, correlated it, and it all made sense. They were all saying the same thing from a little bit of a different perspective here and there, but they all had the same time frame, the same story, the same crazy stuff, you know, bodies fighting in the air and gigantic creatures and monsters and giants and dragons. They all had exactly the same thing. Now, he suggests that Mars was thrown into its current elliptical orbit by Venus. I think I talked about this. It's going not completely around, it's just going way out and coming back. Now, he says Venus was a comet. He argued that Venus was not always a planet. It was a comet expelled from Jupiter, and he gave birth. In the ancient text, it said the feared god Jupiter gave birth to a fiery comet, which later turned out to be Venus. And he says that it collided with Mars before settling into its current orbit. He believed that Venus, Mars, and Earth had frequent close encounters, and that appears to be true. We had a hell of a serious situation, and so Mars was worse, leading to disturbances on Earth's rotation axis inclination. Instead of us going around perfect, we're like this. And our magnetic field. Now, catastrophic events. Velikovsky suggested these close encounters caused catastrophic events on Earth, such as floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, which he believed were recorded in ancient myths and religious texts. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything was recorded. There was giants in the earth in those days, and then more giants after the sons of God, whoever that happens to be. You make up your own decision on that sort of stuff. They came down, had sex with the women that were here on earth, and they gave birth to these giants. And they're everywhere. They are literally everywhere. And there was dragons here on earth. They're literally everywhere as well, showing all this stuff repetitively. And I mean, when I say repetitively, I mean from years and years. Somebody dispute this. Somebody from NASA, who is spending billions of our dollars to look into this Bennu, which here it is right here. It's nothing but sarcomeres, muscle sarcomeres. They went up to a heart, picked it up, and came back with it. And they just can't get their head around this. This is we're paying NASA, National Science Foundation, Smithsonian, all this. How can we better understand? Well, I don't know. Let's discuss. I could be wrong. I don't think so. The evidence I have supported, and they want to go for $11 billion back up to Mars to go get some things that they stored away up there years ago. And this is like 2030, 2040, something like that, by the time they come back with them. This is not right. It's just not right. And I tried to get a hold of, Trump and everybody about this, and Doge and everything, and say, we're spending a ton of money and not getting anything for it. And plus, we don't know what we're looking at. I know what we're looking at. We're looking at biology. This is up on Mars. It continually, over many millions of years, these sarcomeres. No, it got hit by Venus, and then about a week later, this stuff started to decompose. And this is what you got with. Okay, like I say, I want some experts. I want some big shots to get a hold of me. Roger@mudfossils.com. I will gladly do interviews and speak and present my evidence. You can present your evidence. I have evidence on every bit of the scientific realm, which is the biology, the chemistry, geology, which is actually hard biology. And this, another thing, as you see there, which gave birth to Venus, well, guess what this is? Ask an autopsy guy about that, and look up a female body part and what this little spot is right there. That's the latch. I'm not kidding you. This is reality's reality. You can hide from it, but it doesn't change reality. All right, I love you all. It's time for mud fossils to be seen in mainstream. Every time you look up anything about my research now, they say, "Yo, it would be fabulous, but there's no evidence." I showed you evidence coming out of my ears. Nothing can be disputed here. And we have the evidence right from this right here. It came from asteroid Bennu. And they know it's got all of this stuff in it. It's got the DNA, the RNA, the uracil, everything, 100%. It's got the sarcomeres, it's got the phosphates for the phospholipid membranes. It's 100% certainty what that is. It has the biology look to it, it has the valves and everything else. So it's time to get down to reality and then see, what does this mean? They're talking about life on other planets. Well, there certainly absolutely was, no question whatsoever, on Mars. And this is Venus, and these are, you see the blueberries on Mars, and the same thing as the Moki marbles. They have them on Venus too. This is the only picture ever taken from Venus, and it went away, I think, in a few minutes, because it's like 850 degrees up there. This Russians put this up. I like the way Russians do business for science. I got to be honest with you. You know, some of this bombing and all that nasty stuff going on, I'm not too happy about that, but when they did a lot of good research. I follow their stuff closely, and I follow all of it closely. I have friends that were with the European Space Agency, NASA, all that stuff. They won't talk, or are out of the realm now, so they can't talk. Basically, they're retired. This is serious, and it needs to be exposed and discussed in a serious manner, not laughed at. And that's what all I ever get is just, "Oh, that guy's crazy." Well, I'm going to tell you what, this is muscle, my friends. That's muscle. That's tendon. And that is exactly like the Mars crab, the red blood feeding the muscle. Now, I don't have the crab legs because in the water they erode away. But here up on Mars, they do not erode away. They stay. These are the little blood vessels that poke in to the muscle. You need a lot of blood. I mean, a ton of blood to make muscle work, and especially when you're doing some serious activity. And then you just need gushing. Your body, your heart can pump. I think it's like even resting. I think it can be around 6 gallons a minute. That puppy is doing some work for a whole lifetime. It's just amazing. But if you support it correctly with the nutrition it needs and the enzymes and the right transition metals, and you have all of the right nucleophilic substitution going on, you're good to go. And that's all done by membranes. These are the things that right now, I've learned so much about so many things because everything I found, they're just not paying attention to. We're just not paying attention to the membranes. Or virtually anything. And you want to see how big a membrane can be? Hold on. You see that? That's a membrane. That's the phospholipid layer. And then there's a lot of fluids going on in there. This is the bottom layer of a membrane. That's this right here. You see this? That's the top layer. That's the bottom layer. All these little edges here are designed to hold on to a slurpy system, mucus basically. Coats that whole thing, so nothing can go through unless it goes through these ion chambers. Those are the little holes, well, not little in this case, that allow transport. These are channels. So you're supposed to say the bad stuff is supposed to stay out, but you want good stuff to come in. But then you also have to have bad stuff going out. it's an elegant system, and these are the little, in us, you could take this membrane and hold it up like this and see through it like it was a window. There's almost nothing there. There's almost nothing there. Membranes are very, very see-through, basically. But they have a little bit of fluid in between them, and that what carries all of this stuff back and forth. Enzymes, bacteria, and so forth, to separate you from this nasty stuff that wants to get in to kill you. Your body is down under here. This is a membrane. Just think of what's underneath that membrane. This is a membrane. This is a coating of something. Down underneath there's organs or I don't know what. But it's big. And it's deep. And there are heating up and swelling. This is what really needs to be talked about. We need to get away from this combustion of fossil fuels and go into dipole electron flood theory, which may give us outstanding amount of energy for almost nothing or nothing at all. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. Thank you, my good friends. Don't forget, the temperature out here, 1,500 degrees Celsius. That's a couple thousand, 3,000 degrees. Down here, it's minus 80 degrees, which is over 100 below zero. That's a dipole. And then it goes hot again down on the surface. And then the Earth is supposed to absorb it and no longer can. It's trying, but that's what's warming up the Earth, and it's belching hydrocarbons, methanes, and swelling. And volcanism is happening. Earthquakes are happening. The Earth is contorting. It's bloated. It's got gas. All right, this is back to history, and they're saying that these crafts, they maybe existed, and we're drawing little pictures of them. They must be here somewhere. Well, that's possible, but I didn't see anything very convincing. But I can show you something that is convincing. Is this? Right wherever it happens to be, here. That's not normal. They don't show you this in the textbooks. This shouldn't be here. Whatever this is on top of the moon, or it's between us and the moon, and it's radiating. What it's radiating, I don't know. What this is, I don't know. What that is, looks like a pyramid. It looks like things are going back and forth from Atlantis, whatever this is, back to the pyramid. What's this? Now, I have another guy that's doing the same sort of imaging, but he's got some very sophisticated equipment. But I have seen in his stuff, we're just getting started, I think he's picking up the same image. We'll have to see. Now, this stuff was taken from New Zealand. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that's on the other side of the world. The guy I'm working with now, he's up in New York State. And, but I can see you can see the same fields and everything, but he's got a little different pattern to it. He's got a bunch of filters. Filters just means that you can take off everything and just leave one type of frequency coming through. Or there's a lot of ways you can use filters, but filters are just like a coffee filter. You keep everything out, and the fluids come through, that type of thing. And he's got all infrared filters, and he explained a whole bunch of stuff to me, which I didn't understand. So I got to learn. But there's a lot to learn here. We got to start all over. Basically, start all over again. Mud fossils changed everything. And dipole electron flood theory changed everything in physics. Just the way it is. And I wrote this book about my hero Velikovsky called Mudfossils and Velikovskys and Minds in Collision. 10 years ago I wrote that book because they couldn't accept the reality of what was right in their faces. And I presented, like I say, to everybody, and not just Yale, but the problem was that Yale was so dismissive and then took credit for my work. But everybody I've ever presented this to said, take it to Yale. They're the ones that you're going to have to convince. And I said, well, they won't look at it. And they call me an idiot. Because, obviously they'd look at it if it was real. No, they wouldn't. Because they didn't. Again, it was Derek Briggs. And I can show you the first email I sent to him, explain the whole process and everything. right there in the first email. And that was, I don't know, 2014, somewhere around there. Maybe, yeah, it was early. Because I had contacted Professor Burgess, I think is his name, and he said, oh, no, the only one that can authorize something like that is Derek Briggs. I said, okay. So I got a hold of Briggs, and I explained the whole process about, everything. And that I had DNA tests and CAT scans and everything else. Didn't matter. And then, as you saw, Yale took credit for it, a Yale-led team. Same thing that I presented to them. As far as I'm concerned, maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to see somebody argue it in a court of law. All right, I love you all. I guess I'm going to close it up for this, but the minds are in collision right now, and the amount of money being spent to walk in circles is just staggering. That, my friends, was when Mars got wiped out, and it has all the same biology here as we have on Earth. I showed you these giant things that are here on Earth. Earth is nothing more than biology. Bennu is nothing more than biology. Psyche is nothing more than biology. Iron meteorites have blood inside of them. I have iron meteorites here. I have a lung. I have a whole bunch of them. Right there, that's a lung. And you say, how would I know that's a lung? No, I can know it for a couple of reasons. One reason, it has the little latch on the bottom, which holds it in place. It's an iron lung. It came through space with just enough heat to keep it intact and explode all the alveoli holes. They heated them up and blew them out. And this was a lung in some creature, a very small creature. And that is the latch right there that latches the lung into the body so it can do all this. And under the microscope you can see this. And I believe there's still catalase in here, which is the enzyme that gets rid of extra oxygenation, the reactive oxygen species. I'm not talking without evidence. I'm a material scientist. I don't make claims I can't support. I can support every single word I'm saying. And it's understood now. It's just that it upends everything that they're talking about. So I've been not allowed to speak, basically. Unless you've come to my channel, you're never going to see this stuff. All right, so I love you all, and I would like to, first of all, this is billions of dollars. This is billions in the B's. And so is all this stuff doing for going up to Mars and looking at stuff they can't explain. 10 years ago, this was over 10 years ago. And again, I reported this to NASA. I said, you got mud fossils everywhere. Everywhere. Because all of those pictures came from the original. And then they just basically stopped it. So I'm going to leave it at that. And don't forget, Venus came out of the Great Red Spot on Jupiter. That's what was reported from the ancient texts. And guess what the Great Red Spot is? That's the Great Red Spot. Now, you can do a little thinking on that one. I'm going to leave it at that. I love you all. We got a lot of talking to do. I'd love to have the History Channel get a hold of me. We can talk. I'll certainly be willing to discuss whatever they'd like to discuss. And the email is, hold on one second.